Welcome to How You Livin', a transformative podcast featuring best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and minister, Dr. Rick Rigsby. And now, Dr. Rick.
Hello, friends. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to continue a discussion about a subject that I consider to be among the most critical skills one can develop. I'm talking about preparation. Part one of this talk is part of an earlier podcast. This episode is titled Preparation 2.0. Here's a quick review just in case you missed our first discussion on preparation. I was so privileged to serve on the staff of College Football Hall of Fame coach R.C. Slocum at Texas A&M University. And that experience taught me a great deal about preparation, from watching tape to learn your opponent's tendencies, to working in the weight room, to studying assignments. Preparation was the key to victory, not talent, not athleticism, not even how high your team was ranked. It was about one thing. Were you mentally prepared? Were you physically prepared for the challenge? The essence of total preparation was captured in a fantastic documentary featuring a climbing crew from Nepal. They accomplished the impossible. The documentary is titled 14 Peaks. It's the amazing true story of Nims Purja, a Nepal-born naturalized British mountaineer who caught the mountain climbing community by surprise. Nims and his team set out to climb all 14 8,000-meter peaks in 7 months. 8,000 meters. That's over 26,000 feet. An altitude in the climbing community known as the death zone. At this altitude, you breathe a third of the oxygen you normally breathe. The elements are brutal, sometimes fatal. The first to accomplish this feat, the first to climb all 14 peaks, was Reinhold Messner in 1986 without the assistance of supplemental oxygen. It took Messner 14 years. In 2019, Nims and his team climbed all 14 peaks in 6 months and 6 days. How do you even begin to prepare? How do you begin to prepare to climb 14 peaks in 6 months? Peaks that are 26,000 feet, peaks that present insurmountable odds in the worst weather conditions imaginable. Well, physical preparation has to be a key. For Nims, he had been preparing for this climb and for this series of climbs for the previous 20 years. You see, he started off as a child wanting to be a Gurkha, just like his dad. Gurkha, those specially trained forces from Nepal who were recruited by the British Army. They're known as brave soldiers and fearless warriors in combat. To become a Gurkha, Nims ran a 30K run every single morning. That's 18.6 miles every day, and he did it for years. This was in addition to his high-altitude military training. Nims also trained to enter the UK Special Boat Service. He ran a daily 20K with a backpack on. That's 12 miles while carrying 165 pounds. And he would run at 1 o'clock in the morning before his Gurkha duties began. This day would also include personal training sessions with others. According to an article in GQ magazine, Nims became the first Gurkha to enter the UK Special Force, only leaving to fulfill his climbing ambitions. His preparation was also mental. Nims had a steadfast belief that all things are possible. You are unstoppable when you believe that all things are possible. He once said collaboration, teamwork, and a positive mental attitude can push limits to what we might feel is impossible. He said, giving up is not in my blood. In the magazine Men's Journal, Nims discussed packing for his climbs. It was so fun to learn about what a mountaineer packs. Suffice to say, he packed only which was essential, but I'm telling you, the basics just to survive included a boatload of items. a bomb-proof summit suit for extreme conditions, additional clothing layers, mountain climbing kits that included a shovel, an axe, gloves, helmet, ropes, pulleys, pull harnesses, headlamps, tents, bedding, toiletries. The list goes on and on. We haven't even talked about cooking gear, water, and additional clothing, and a ton of other items, all stuffed into a backpack. Friends, I'm always fascinated by the packing process, what to take, how long it takes to pack, how can I be more resourceful, how can I be more efficient in my packing. Every trip, in fact, I return home and I evaluate my packing, always attempting to be more exact in my preparation. I suppose I come to this preparation fetish rather naturally. I spent my entire childhood being coached by the most prepared man I've ever known. My dad, that third grade dropout, yet the wisest man I've ever met. He may not have been a Hall of Fame football coach or a world-class record-setting mountain climber, but he was brilliant in terms of teaching life's important lessons. And one major lesson, preparation. Let's be honest, when you're a kid, you don't think your folks are very wise, and why do they continue to repeat those same stories over and over? And then you live a few years, you go through a few things, and you start to realize that your folks probably weren't so dumb after all. When I was a kid, I never thought I'd travel for a living. As a result, travel efficiency has become sort of a hobby for me. How can I squeeze more into my carry-on? How can I get more from less? Recently, somebody asked me, how in the world did my dad pack for those long voyages at sea? You see, my dad was a cook at California Maritime Academy in Northern California. This school is dedicated to training men and women for careers in the maritime business. Now, in order for these cadets to graduate, they have to go on a training ship each year. In a 30-year career, my father sailed the world 10 times over. But more astounding to me is that he never forgot to pack something. The Golden Bear, the training ship Golden Bear, that was the vessel he sailed on, it would set sail the middle of January. The cruise would be about 3 months in duration. My dad started packing for a January cruise in December, and he only took one suitcase, the same suitcase his entire 30-year career, a 1950s brown hard-shell Samsonite suitcase. That was it. No other luggage, no other boxes or bags, just one suitcase. Now, the work clothes, they were provided by the academy. So were the shoes. Personal items were washed every couple of days in the ship's laundry. So this is what my dad packed. And believe me, when I say essential, I mean essential. He had a toiletries bag. We used to call it a shaving kit back in the day. He had 4 pair of underwear, 4 pair of socks, 4 handkerchiefs, 1 pair of casual clothing, some sandals, 1 sweater jacket combo. He always packed his transistor radio and extra batteries. He loved listening to international sports events. He packed his cigarettes, he packed his dominoes, stationery, ink pens, rubber bands, and a flashlight. That was it. Everything was in its proper place. Everything was packed with meticulous precision. You see, that's the generation of men and women that focused on exactness. They focused on details. These are those World War II folks. They practice some profound basics such as resourcefulness and preparation. My dad had 2 sayings, 2 lessons when it came to preparation. I mentioned the first one in the previous podcast. The first lesson was this: son, the greater the preparation, the fewer the surprises. Isn't that true? The more you prepare, the more you'll be able to anticipate change and adjust to that change, and the fewer surprises you'll have along the way. But the second lesson was the most profound lesson when it came to preparation. Lesson number 2 is simply this: son, you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Friends, I heard that line so many times as a kid it made me sick. Today, I use that line at least once a day, and it brings me tremendous joy. Hey, Dad, I can hear him saying, should I take a coat? Dad, should I take a quarter just in case I need bridge toll money? Just in case, Dad, should I take a sweater? And I can hear him now. Son, you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. It's about as basic a quote as you'll ever hear. It's not in a book. It's not a major philosophy, but the wisdom, when applied, will greatly improve your preparation. I've been all over the world. I've flown over 5 million miles. And on each trip, I follow my dad's simple wisdom, those 2 basic lessons. You want to hear the results? In 30 years of traveling, I have only forgotten 3 items in 30 years. I can even recall what they are: a pair of socks, a dress belt, and a pair of cufflinks. I wonder if these simple lessons can enhance your preparation. Son, the greater the preparation, the fewer the surprises. Son, you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I joke with family that I bet my dad learned this lesson the hard way earlier in his career. I imagine he probably forgot something, and you're in the middle of the South Pacific, several days from shore, so you learn right away that preparation is the key. You see, for my dad, packing was not a casual activity. Packing was intentional. Packing was not random for my father. Packing was survival. Packing was not without thought or creativity. Packing was resourceful. Son, you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I cannot tell you how often I laughed when my dad would say those words, behind his back, of course. Like I said earlier, I use that line at least once a day. I've even caught my sons now laughing at me. And what a compliment, because I know what they're going to say in their future. With considerable time to reflect on these simple lessons over the years, I have a theory on where all this planning and prepping came from. Dad's preparation was rooted in resourcefulness, mastering the skill of resourcefulness by learning to use what you have. Arthur Ashe, the great tennis pro, once said, "Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can." Friends, it's amazing how resourceful we become when we lack funds or the ability to have people repair things for us. Think about how much more resourceful we've become during the pandemic. I remember that our ice machine broke inside of our refrigerator, and it broke during the lockdown when we were secluded and sheltered in place. I couldn't call a repair person. Thank God for YouTube. But our parents didn't have YouTube. And many of our parents had limited funds. Guess what? It made them more resourceful. They learned to plan. They learned to prepare for all seasons and for all situations. They called it common sense. Friends, you learn to use your time and your space and your resources conservatively. As the old folks used to say, you learn to make do. You don't spend foolishly. You don't buy unnecessarily. You know those hotel gift shops? Thank God for them. But you'd be wrong if you thought my dad ever visited one. Instead, Dad invested in himself, in his own preparation, by teaching himself and future generations 2 basic lessons. The more you prepare, the fewer surprises. And you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Why don't you chew on those words for a few days? Friends, that's going to do it for this episode. Until we meet again, this is Dr. Rick, asking the most important question I can ask. How you living?
Are you ready to make an impact in your world right now? Do you want to stop existing and start living your best life right now? Dr. Rick wants to give you the first chapter of his best-selling book, Lessons from a Third Grade Dropout, absolutely free. Just go to www.rickrigsby.com/free gift to get the print or audiobook right now.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.